Good to have you here today, Scott. So nice to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me, Rich. It's awesome. Pleasure to be here.
I welcome you to the northern Arizona of Los Angeles. It's as close as we can get to your training grounds, but it's pretty nice up here. So I appreciate you making the trek.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. What I really want to talk about before anything is the Showrunners podcast.
All right, let's do it.
We could just let's just
dive
talk about
in.
movies.
Let's just dive right in, man. That's why I started the podcast.
I know.
I like talking about movies. It's a fun run conversation, which is where I spend most of my social time with friends and stuff. And I was just like, I'm got free time. I would like to just kind of watch movies in a more structured way, and I was just like, let's just do it. And I talked to a friend of mine who owns runs a running website, Sidious Mag, and I was like,
Chris Chavez,
and I was like, hey, can I have my own podcast? I just want to talk about movies with my friends, and he was like, yeah. And so it was perfect.
How dare you think about anything but running?
I know, exactly. That's right. I'm one-dimensional.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's so cool that you're doing that.
Thank you.
I would be delighted to just talk about movies and nothing else the whole time if that's what you want to talk about. You must be tired about talking about Boston and all of that.
We can mention it here and there, I guess. But yeah. I'd love to hear your takes on the new Tarantino movie.
We can do a whole deep dive on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm ready to go. It's sort of rewatchables with runners, basically.
Yes, very much so. It's I don't want to take too much credit for the idea, but it's very much a ripoff of the
Well, I love that show.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's great.
I'm a huge fan of it. So I thought it was super cool that you're doing that. And I think it's cool that you live this full life. Like you're at the the very tip of elite marathoning. And yet you still carve out time to develop your interests with this podcast and writing the book and all the other things that you do. So I'm interested, I guess, first of all, in just hearing how that informs your I presume that having all of those other interests is super important in terms of you just being a happy person so that you can perform at your best. Whereas certain people might look at that as a distraction, especially going into Olympic year.
Yeah, I think so. For me, it was very strange for me to go from a college setting where I was very intellectually stimulated to a professional running setting where there's really no structured way to flex your mind. And for maybe a year, I really leaned into that, and I just binge watched The Office and Parks and Rec and 30 Rock 100 times. And then after
I don't have anyone to talk about with this.
And after maybe a year, I was like, I gotta find something else to fill the time. And that's now at this point, I'm doing it in a way that I feel comfortable sharing and having structured interests and making it more as an outward thing as opposed to me just reading a book inside.
Yeah. Well, there's only, I would imagine your training schedule puts you at somewhere around 25 or 30 hours a week, which still leaves a lot of time, right? Or, well, there's all the extra stuff on top of that. It is a full-time job, but there's still downtime.
Yeah. I would say it's, if you include napping, maybe 25 hours a week. It's a soft 25 hours. And it's not like watching movies is strenuous by any means. I'm not going out and doing CrossFit in my spare time.
Right.
And that's not, I can watch a movie and recover at the same time. So it was kind of a way to use my spare time in a way that felt mentally productive.
Yeah. Well, getting my head around you and your life and your career in preparing to talk to you today, most of the media coverage about you was kind of right post Boston, so which we're going to get into. But I'm interested in kind of where you're at now, as some time has elapsed and you're preparing for trials and you got a race this weekend coming up. Where's your head at? How are you feeling? What is your sort of mental perspective? As we're 190, 180 days out of trials at this point.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't count down.
Good for you.
Yeah. So physically, we're doing a segment where I'm not going to run a marathon this fall. We decided to get away from the marathon after running Boston. And
what is that decision about?
So I ran New York Marathon last year, Boston this year, and that was a whole year of marathoning. And the thing about the marathon is it's very hard and very specific, and so you don't really have time to do some stuff that don't really lend themselves to the marathon, but is still important to work on. So shorter tempos, speed stuff. So for the long term, that will be helpful, but we kind of needed to find a place to do it before the Olympic trials segment really started, and we really got going on really marathon specific stuff. So physically, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm doing a lot of workouts that I don't feel really comfortable in. Like they're not the workouts that are really my bread and butter, but will be important for the Olympic trials in a few months, and are particularly important as we build into the segment where we really get ready for the trials.
Yeah.
Mentally, things haven't changed for me. I am very much a believer that like the best way to accomplish goals down the line is to do really well at what you're doing right now. Mm-hmm. So whatever is on my schedule, I just try to do as well as I can in that. And I have faith in like my coach and the people around me that if I do kind of what they say as well as I can right now, the larger puzzle will come together down the line.
Right. It feels like you've really part of your mindset game is to divest yourself of thinking too hard or much about the preparation. Like you really trust your coach and you let him make those decisions, and that frees up some kind of headspace for you to just be you.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. And it's just generally being like one of the kind of buzzwords in sports and business and everything right now is like process oriented. And for me, what that means, being process oriented, means like A, focusing on day by day, and B, not judging my performances down the line against other people. They're based on what I feel like I can do and whether or not I got the most out of myself. And so, yeah, right now it's been about getting the most out of myself every day, and whether or not that's a hard day or an easy day, so be it,
I heard you speaking, maybe it was with Chris, you were talking about what you respected in Kipchoge and perhaps, some of the other East African runners. And one of the things is like, they don't worry about all that stuff, like whether they change the course or all the kind of externalities that can throw people off their game. Like they seem to, that's just, water under the bridge to them. Like they're so focused on what they're doing. So when I hear you say that, it sounds like you've adopted, you're striving to adopt that kind of mentality.
Yeah, hopefully, I think the sport is a lot simpler when you just don't worry about all that stuff. Right. It's just running, realistically. Like everyone wants to make it this big, complicated thing, but it's a pretty simple thing. Like everyone can go for a run, and you don't have to think about like all these tactics all the time, and you don't have to worry about the courses or the hills or the turns or the weather. Like it's just running. Like just get out of your own way is kind of my own like internal mantra.
But post Boston, there's a bigger spotlight on you now. Like you're not as under the radar as you were a year ago, 2 years ago, right? So do you feel that, or do you do your best to insulate yourself from all of that?
My hope is that it doesn't change anything. The fact that I'm in a bigger spotlight, and I think mentally it hasn't changed anything, because like I think I'm viewed as being very confident now, but I was confident on April 14th too. Like I didn't necessarily surprise myself that I ran that well in Boston. I kind of knew that was possible. And so it's not like I have to make a change. I knew I was capable of it then, and now it actually happened, but I kind of believed it was going to happen beforehand.
Right.
Yeah.
But at Boston, you were like, what was your bib number? Like 28 or something like that?
28.
Right? So, if you were to make a surge or try to do something spectacular, there was the chance that they would let you go. I mean, we're going to tell that whole story, but you could have done a little bit of a sneak move that you probably can't get away with now.
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
I'm not really sure.
All eyes on you. Right?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Maybe I could still get away with it. Boston, I have no idea. Meb won after he was very, very good already. Had done some great things. So there's a chance. I don't really know. But yeah, I'd hope that I don't change based on the fact that I have a spotlight on me now. Yeah.
And I also heard you say shortly after Boston that it would be a mistake for you to alter your training too much. Like, this is what worked. This is what got me to this place. Like, let's kind of stay on this path and not, make some rash decisions about changing up too many things leading into 2020. Is that still the case?
Absolutely. I think that's probably the biggest mistake people make is like they have this sort of breakthrough performance and like, well, let's just push the envelope. Let's just keep pushing. But really the way we got to this point was by picking and choosing when we were going to really push, and then also just hitting singles. We just trying to get on base, trying to do well at everything we did. And occasionally you swing big and try to have a really big day, whether that's in a workout or like Boston in a big race. But I think it would be easy to get really results focused. But again, I wanted to stay like, this is the process that got us here. Let's just keep getting better at this. And we just have faith that the results will come.
Right. Well, let's work our way up to this. So you start out as essentially a cross-country protege in Colorado, right?
Sure.
Standout high school cross-country runner. Then you go to Portland, you run NC2A, and you were a standout, but it wasn't like you were winning tons of races, like lots of 12ths and 15ths and things like that. And I guess you got injured in your senior year.
Yep.
So perhaps, you weren't able to show what you were truly capable of at the time, but it wasn't like, oh, here's the next new face of, American distance running. Is that fair?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I don't think I'd be going speaking out of turn when I said I signed for $0. My salary at the start was $0. And I signed my first contract in my girlfriend's Mini Cooper with a boot on my foot.
Right.
It was a very inauspicious way to start a professional running career, and not at all how I had ever dreamed of it.
Well, I love how the book opens up with this email exchange. Where basically you're trying to get on this team. You're trying to get on the Northern Arizona team, and Ben Rosario, the coach, is like, nah, I don't think so.
I'm not sure if you're good enough.
And it took a little jockeying and back and forth, and a word put in by Shalane's husband to even get your name on that roster.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm super grateful for Steve for going to bat for me, because he absolutely didn't need to. Steve Edwards, Shalane's husband.
Yeah.
And I think probably when I emailed Ben, he was like, yeah, all right, I guess this guy's fine. But at that point, we had Ben Bruce was running in his prime. He was running 13:30s in the 5K and 8:20s in the steeple. And Matt Yano had just run 101:45. And I was kind of asking, it's like, can I please come? And I'll figure out a way to pay for things. You don't have to pay me anything. And Ben was like, is this guy really going to be good enough? And I'm just happy to have had a chance, really.
So how does it work? Like when you're graduating from college and you're a standout performer and you're trying to get, in on one of these squads, there really is a gate, right? Like you have to impress the coach or you have to be invited. Like how does that work for somebody who knows nothing about elite running? Yeah,
the business structure for elite running is a lot like golf in the sense that we have sponsors and there's prize money. It's just way less. Just whatever you see on the PGA Tour, just way less than that. And it kind of depends
shocking.
Shocking, of course. Yeah. It kind of depends on how good you are. So if you are good enough where you're kind of lighting the world on fire in college, people will come to you. And if you're in my position, I kind of felt like I had to go to coaches. And I was very lucky to have been introduced to Shalane's husband, Steve Edwards. And he kind of gave me enough guidance to be like, this is some people you could look at. And what I did was just went to every professional running team's website that I could find and emailed as many coaches as I could find their contact info. And then Ben got back to me, and I was fortunate enough that he was took enough of an interest in me to fly me down to Flagstaff, and I got to meet the team. And I don't think I wasn't a huge risk. He didn't have to designate any money to me at all. But he was basically you can come if you work really hard, you can run well enough to earn a salary. And that's kind of how it happened. I just put out as wide a net as I could. And when Ben got back to me, I knew that was kind of where I wanted to be. I clicked really well with Ben Rosario, my coach. And that was that. I moved to Flagstaff in, I guess it would be almost 4 years ago today.
Yeah. What is it that Ben was doing, or that was, indicative of like, his coaching ability? Like what was happening in Northern Arizona that caught your fascination? Like I was going to, it sounds like you were emailing everybody, but, what is specific to that program that makes it so unique and excellent?
Yeah, the team had signed with Hoka One, which we're still with now, Hoka and AZ Elite, as like a title sponsor earlier in the year. And that was kind of a big thing that caught my eye because a lot of these groups, they don't have any funding. Mm-hmm. And even though I wasn't necessarily getting paid, there is like an infrastructure and a prestige that comes with having a title sponsor. So that was one thing. And then I was really, really drawn to Ben's confidence and Ben's like professionalism. Like he was absolutely 100% all in as a coach. It was like a full-time job for him. And that's, even though there are quote unquote professional teams, that's not something you find all the time. There are a few professional full-time coaches, and there are a lot of people who are like coaching after work.
Isn't he like a professor though also? Doesn't he teach in Provo or something like that?
No, sorry, that's Jared Ward.
Oh, Jared. Okay.
Yeah, Jared's...
sorry, I was confused about that.
No worries.
So when you show up, do you have to get like a part-time job, or like how do you make ends meet when you're just beginning?
Yeah, so I worked a ton. Flagstaff, for those who haven't been there or don't know, it's not really a great place to find like part-time jobs, and it's especially not a great place if you say, well, yeah, I can't come to work anytime between 8 in the morning and 11, and a couple times during the like in the evening, I'll be gone from 3 to 5. And
I need to nap.
Yeah, and I need to nap, and I can't come on Thursday nights because that's when we go to the weight room.
You should move to Los Angeles. There's lots of people like that.
Yeah.
Every actor's schedule is something along those lines.
Yeah, so basically I just made a resume and handed it out a bunch of places, but I always made sure to put like running first, and I worked a ton over the summer before I moved to Flagstaff, and basically just burned through my savings like pretty quickly, and I was fortunate enough to run very well at the end of the year and basically do enough to earn a salary starting January 1st, and then ran well enough to kind of earn raises throughout the year in my career.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like having to bootstrap that on a dream, you know what I mean?
It was pretty stressful. I mean, there were times when my card got declined, and I was just like, well, I guess I'm not buying these groceries. Like I'm going to go home and like I got another living stipend coming in a couple days, so I guess that's when I'll go get groceries.
So romantic.
Oh, it was amazing.
Your dream, right?
Yeah.
So there you are. I mean, one of the things, well, first of all, Steve in his email to Ben is like, listen, this guy's a marathoner. You hadn't run a marathon yet, but he saw that in you, bird bones or whatever, but he's got some strength on him. He's like perfectly suited for this. So there was a sense that you were well suited for that discipline before you'd even ever tried it. So when you went to Flagstaff, was that the idea? Like, I'm going to step it up and move to the marathon?
Not right off the bat, but that was quite clearly where I was going to have the most success. And it was just kind of a question as to how long until I'm ready to make a responsible jump to the marathon, as opposed to just jumping right in.
Right.
Because I had a qualifying time for the Olympic trials, which were going to be in February. So
From running the half, right?
Yeah. So I could have gone straight to the marathon in February of 2016, but we kind of decided to push that back and just be like, let's get miles under our belt. Let's get comfortable in some of these long workouts before we go 100% all in on the marathon. And we ended up doing that. I was still very young for going to the marathon, at least for American marathon standards.
I mean, that's one of the things that's pretty unique about you is that traditionally it's many years later when the elite runner kind of steps it up to that distance, and you made that jump much sooner than most people, which puts you like now, what are you, 27 now? Something like that? Yeah, 27. I mean, that's really young,
Yeah, I mean...
And only 3 marathons under your belt.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I'm kind of entering my prime. Physically, from probably 28 to 32 is when you probably have all the tools. You haven't lost the fast twitch fibers, but you're probably not as injury risk, but you've run enough miles to be really good. And we're kind of the opinion that you should be running your best event when you're physically most capable. Right. And so maybe I could train really hard for a spring and run sub 1330 on the track or something like that in the 5K. And A, I have no interest in doing that, and B, I'm better at the marathon. So I think
Right.
it's important to be doing what you're best at when you're going to be the best at running in general.
Yeah, and I think there's still so much room for improvement because you are still relatively new to it and you're young, you have your speed, you can probably handle volume more than, an older person, you're going to be less injury prone. So when you look at that jump that you made from going 212 to low 209, that seems crazy, but like you're still developing as a runner. And now here you are going into Olympic year with another year under your belt. Like that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And I sure hope there's still more to gain. That'd be huge. But, I'm very excited, very optimistic about the Olympic year. And I feel like we're in a good spot, not only physically, but also like situationally. I feel very comfortable with the people around me and with what like the routines we've carved out. And, Ben in particular, but we've also got a really good weight training staff and Wes and AJ Gregg, who are our strength coaches and chiros and good massage therapists. So I feel very, very prepared, I guess, for the next 6 or 7 months or whatever it is to the trials.
So your big coming out party was Boston. I mean, you distinguished yourself in New York and in Frankfurt. What did you get in? You got 7th in New York, ran 212, and then you ran Frankfurt the year before that and got 9th, also running 212. So, in the marathon world, people were taking notice and certainly knew who you were, but America learned to embrace you in Boston.
America being very niche America.
Well, I mean, listen, a lot of people watch the Boston Marathon who don't know that much about elite marathon running, and when you took the lead, and they're like, "Who's this guy?" Suddenly you're the topic of conversation. So let's spend a little time talking about Boston.
Sure.
Because that was such an extraordinary, incredible performance. And I've heard you say going into that you knew you were capable of going under 210 and you had a lot of confidence going into it. But that's different from being in the mix of it and sort of leading the race at certain points. Like, are you like how do you think about that looking back on it now? Because the interviews that I listened to and read were right after that, and I would imagine that that experience is settled in, and maybe you have a little bit more perspective on it now.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I don't think I did a good job of communicating immediately after the race was like when I led, I was kind of shocked, and not shocked. I took a moment to like appreciate it. I was like, oh my God, I'm leading the Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
Like I took a moment to let that soak in and be like, this is such an amazing experience. But it's not like I went to the lead just to say that. Like I went to the lead a number of times.
I'm going to get my TV time now.
Yeah. I went to the lead with a purpose and with the goal of like dropping people and making people hurt, and with like an agenda, initiative to get up to really push the pace. And I did. I mean, I took the lead for the first time seriously at like 16 miles, and I was in and out of the lead until like 22. And when I took the lead at 16, there was a group of probably 25 people. And when I got over the top of Heartbreak Hill at 21, there was 8. So I don't think I communicated the fact that I really pushed. I didn't just go to the lead to be there. There was a point. And I mean, at this point, after the race, I've kind of like let that sink in where it's like, yeah, I'm really strong. Like I can just kind of do that and feel really comfortable up front, as opposed to getting up there and being really nervous and just kind of freaking out. Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Like, do I really belong up here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I've overextended myself.
Absolutely.
Well, my sense from reading up on this is that you were, and for the uninitiated, if you were watching it, you'd think you're putting in these surges trying to, create a lead or whatever, but you were kind of sticking to your own plan of what you wanted to do. And the surges and the regressions were really a reflection of what the pack was doing, and not really what you were doing. Yeah,
especially going up the Newton Hills. So when you take a right turn at 17 and a half miles, and that's when the hills like really start. And the favorites and leaders, they would push really hard on the uphills, and there are these kind of respites in between the hills where it was unclear whether they were catching their breath or whether they just wanted to slow it down for a different reason. And I would let myself slip to the back of the group when they were running hard up the hill. And then when we'd get over the top of the hill and we'd have the flat section, I would just keep running the same rhythm. So I'd pick it up in pace because we were running flat or downhill. But I would find myself going back to the front and really dragging these people along.
Mm-hmm.
And that was mostly just me trying to do the best thing for me. It wasn't like a huge tactical move to try to break things open. It was just like the best way for me to get from here to the top of these hills is to run one really hard, even pace.
Right. One of the things you've talked about is the difference between good and fast. Like there's running fast, but there's also running good, which is more about racing, right? Mm-hmm. Like how do you put in a good performance amongst the group? And so when you're heading into Boston, you have a race plan. This is what I think I can execute. You've got it all locked in, but then you're in the pack and things are happening and you've got to adjust to what other people are doing. Like how much of that plays into spontaneous adjustments that you're making? Or are you just like, I'm running my thing. Like I'm not paying attention to any of these people. Like, are you reactive or responsive, or are you just within yourself?
I think at my best in Boston, I was within myself and not worrying about the pace. I mean, I didn't take a split the whole race, like a mile split. The only way I was keeping track of how fast we were running was I'd look at the clock every mile and I would just take a note how many seconds under 5-minute pace we were. And then once we got to the hills at like 16, I stopped looking at the clock completely until 25 or something.
But you probably know yourself well enough to know, that was you probably knew your pace just intuitively.
Yeah, mostly the feel of it. I wouldn't say I had like a really firm grasp on what the number was, but I did know what it was supposed to feel like. And there was a couple parts in the race where the pack would surge and I would kind of get left behind, like most notably from like 12 to 14. There was this big surge in the group and all of a sudden I was like 20 seconds back. And at that point I was thinking, I wasn't within myself. I was thinking a lot about the pace. I was thinking a lot about the numbers. I was thinking a lot about the people who were running away from me. And that was my worst stretch of the race. And once we kind of got to this big downhill and I was like, okay, just letting my legs flow now. I'm going to let it turn over. I kind of got into this, I guess you would call it like flow state where things didn't really hurt. And I was just kind of, my legs were moving without me really having to push them. That was my best stretch in the race, was after I got out of my own head and got out of my own way and just let myself go do what I felt like I could do.
Yeah. Well, that takes a level of maturity. It'd be easier to just freak out and go, oh my God, like I gotta pick it up or I'm going to lose contact with the group. Right. And get outside of what your plan is because you're reacting.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope I was mature.
For such a young man.
Yeah.
Who only had done two other marathons up to that point.
Yeah.
But that's a tribute to you and the work that you did with your coach and the confidence that you had going into the race. How much, what is going on? Like when you're part of that pack, like are people talking to each other? Like is there jockeying? Like what is the strategy that you kind of witness unfolding amongst the leaders? Like I think it's interesting for, most people that are listening to this are casual runners at best. I think everyone would be super interested in knowing like what is it like? Like are people talking shit to each other? Are they like, get out of my way? Or is there any of that going on? Or what does it feel like?
There's not a ton of talking shit. Occasionally, like people will, like say if it's a really crowded pack, there'll be some bumping.
Right.
And then there'll be some chirping. People don't necessarily care for that. It's a huge wide road. You don't need to be all over each other.
Right. There's some etiquette, right?
Yeah.
Like give people some berth.
But I mean, for the most part, there are little mind games you can see people playing. Like if you've got a good tangent and someone's coming up on the inside, you can kind of squeeze them out. And, but for me, I try to just stay out of all of that. I don't need to worry about anyone else. I just want to do the best that I can do. And the more I get sucked into what other people are doing, the worse the end result ends up being, I think.
There was one point where you went way wide of the group. I can't remember what that was. Like you had a better like angle on the course than everyone else. And you were just kind of completely separated from everyone.
Yeah, that happens kind of quite a bit. For whatever reason, I mean, part of it is that when you live in America, it's easy to get to Boston. So most of us who had seen Live in America saw the course at some point. But for whatever reason, the East Africans generally aren't great at running tangents, whether it's that they haven't seen the course before or that they just don't know where the race is going or whatever, they'll almost always be on the wrong side of the road, or they'll stay in the middle of the road when a turn's coming up. And it's almost baffling. Like some of these guys in the race have run Boston like 6 or 7 times. And it's like, we're coming up to a big right-hand turn, guys. Like,
and they're
this
way
is obviously
on
the right side. You obviously want to be over here. So I think it was mostly like, I just had faith that I knew where I was going and I knew what the best plan was.
Yeah. So at some point, so you take you're up in the front, and the group's getting smaller and smaller. You take the lead. What is it like at around like 19 or 20 or something like that?
Yeah, there were a couple of spots where I got in the front.
Yeah, and at that point, you must be thinking. I mean, you're a strong finisher, right? Like,
yeah, I'd been closing workouts really well.
Completely just bust a move here and break away. Like, these people aren't really expecting me to do anything like that. But that ended up not being the case, right? So walk me through like how that last part of the race went.
Yeah, I think at like 19 was when the group was really down to like 8 people. And I was kind of sitting on the back going up like the last of the Newton Hills Heartbreak Hill. And, you know, you mentioned before I was bib number 28, and at Boston they go by PR. So I had 28, the 28th fastest PR, 2:12. There were 29 men in the elite field. So on paper, I should have been down there, and up ahead of me is like 2, 4, 7, 8.
Right.
And I remember thinking like the slowest guy in this group has run 6 minutes faster than me over the course of a marathon. And then I was kind of like, you know what? It doesn't matter right now. There's nothing I can do about that at this moment. And as we got up the very last hill, just like I had at every other hill, I got over the top and I accelerated off the crest of the hill. And all of a sudden I found myself in the front. And for like a split second, I was like, you know, if I go really, really hard right now, maybe they'll kind of let me go. Maybe they'll think like we can pull them back later, and this is my best shot. And I pushed pretty hard for like 50 or 60 meters, and they came right with me. It was too late. They were going to be covering everything. And so we get to 22 miles, which is kind of a hard mile, and you take a left turn at Cleveland Circle. You're going down Beacon Street now. And right as we take that turn, like 7 guys start running way faster than I'm capable of running. Like they just are hammering.
This is like your Dennis Christopher moment in Breaking Away.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like I'm just envisioning that scene where all the Italians roll up and, you know, he's by himself and they put the pump in his spokes and he goes down. Yeah.
That was one of my big quips was with that movie. It was like, how did he even get up with these guys? They had a gap. They should have just used team tactics, stayed away. But yeah. Other than the bike spoke in the wheels, it was basically the same thing. Yeah. It was like they just started cranking, and I just couldn't hang. And for like maybe 30 seconds, I threw myself a little pity party where it's like, shit, I'm not good enough today. Like I'm not gonna be able to hang. Like I ran 22 great miles, and I was like, no, you know what? Like fuck that. Like I'm having a great day today. Like we're getting focused again, and it hurt a lot. Like I was in a ton of pain, but when I just got really, really dialed in and just making it to the next mile marker, getting next to the next K, I could kind of get back into that rhythm. And I went back to like my power phrases, the stuff that I'd been doing every time it got really hard in practice, which was like this one Jay-Z song that I like is "Fuck With Me, You Know I Got It." So I kept saying that over in my head and kept reminding myself to just keep the pedal down. And eventually I caught up to 7th place, moved into 7th, and got up there's like a tiny little hill leading into 25 at Boston. At 25 miles, it feels like a freaking mountain. Right. It feels awful. And I looked at the clock and I saw 1 mile to go. I needed like a 450 to break 209. And I was like, all right, we're going for it. And I pushed basically as hard as I could for like 600 meters. And then you do this little underpass and pushed down it, started going up it, and my legs just went. They just weren't, just like I got kicked in the nuts. And get up to the top of the underpass, right on Hereford, little bit of uphill left on Boylston, and then you got like 600 yards. And I still thought maybe I got a shot. So I was
right, because you can see that finish line from quite a distance, right? It probably was still reading like 207 or something. Yeah.
And so I was just hammering. I was like, I'm going to go deeper. I can go deeper. Like, keep pushing yourself. You can take more pain. And it wasn't until like maybe 60 or 70 yards when it's like, I'm not gonna go under 209. I'm not gonna catch anyone. And at that point, I kind of let myself really enjoy the last finish. Like I got to point to the crowd. I saw a couple friends in the stands, and I pointed to the other side, and finally got across the line. And then Yeah. Then,
209.09.
Yeah, 209.09.
The wall of sound has to be unbelievable.
It's
riding
incredible.
That final stretch.
Yeah. I mean, I went to Boston they've got some shorter races that weekend, but the year before when it was just pouring down rain, and it was really loud then. So the next year when we had really nice weather, I couldn't believe it. You come out of the little tunnel and you turn right on Hereford, and it's like a rock concert. Yeah. Or it feels like a rock concert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you are the rock star.
Yeah. Hopefully you're still rocking.
Yeah.
26 miles in.
And that morning it was pouring rain, right? It was looking
Yeah.
like it wasn't going to be a nice day.
Yeah, and I was looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I wanted the worst weather possible. I remember getting on the bus you get on the bus to Boston at like 5:50 in the morning or something. And I remember texting my girlfriend like, it's raining so hard. Like, this is so awesome. I can't wait to get into this race. And both unfortunately and fortunately, it became super, super nice all of a sudden. Basically like 30 minutes before the race started. It was just a perfect day.
What are the mindset tactics that you use? I mean, you talked about the Jay-Z song, and like, what are the things that you kind of rely upon to, meet those obstacles and those barriers and push through, the pain?
I would say the biggest thing is like meditation practice. I've been practicing for the better like part of 2 years. And I didn't start meditating for running by any means, but
It was
I think
anxiety brought you into that, right?
it was, yeah. It was a way to combat anxiety and sort of just deal with it in a more healthy way. But I think once you practice it for long enough, it kind of starts to permeate other parts of your life. And so being present, and in particular, like the strategy of noting, where when you realize you're distracted, you just say, that's thinking, and you can get back into focus a little bit more, as opposed to like ruminating on the fact that you're thinking and then you're pissed off that you're distracted, and that's just all more thinking.
Right.
So if you can just note it and let it go, I think that's one of the more helpful
What is the
strategies.
daily practice of that look like for you specifically?
I just meditate 15 minutes in the morning, and then on good days I get in like another 10 in the evening.
Do you have a specific like practice? Do you use an app?
Yeah, I use Headspace.
Oh, you do? Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And then like throughout the day, like does that give you like that extra level of awareness when your mind drifts to like bring it back?
Yeah, I would say I could be more focused in my general life. And I try to be mindful, but I would say the times when I feel like the most at ease and the most mindful are when I'm outside, whether that's running or walking the dog or whatever. It's just, for whatever reason, being outside helps a lot.
Well, running will definitely bring you into the present, right?
Yeah.
But I would imagine your mind still wanders, so you're always in that, when you're racing specifically or training, like to be always bringing it back to like what's happening in the moment.
Yeah, and I don't train with music. I don't ever listen to podcasts when I run. It's just me and my thoughts. And
how dare you?
I know. I'm sorry, Rich. I listen to you when I stretch.
This interview is over.
Yeah. I listen to you when I stretch and when I drive. It's all your podcasts. I listen to them all.
All the time.
Yeah, every single day it's one. I've listened to the Brian Koppelman one 7 times, Rich.
Okay. I feel better now.
Yeah. Thank you. We can keep going. Yeah, and I think just the more you can practice having sort of like a quiet mind, the better, whether that's formal meditation practice or like taking 60 meters on a run and just being like, you know what? I'm just going to be really still until I get past that tree. Or when you get to like a turnaround point, just taking 5 seconds and feeling your feet on the ground or feeling a wind on your face or appreciating the scenery.
Do you break it down into like when you're really in the pain cave, like, okay, I just need to get right up to that next tree or that next street lamp, or I'm just going to focus on catching that one guy who's right in front of me. Like, do you like try to deconstruct it and break it down into tiny little, bite-sized pieces?
No, I just let it all in.
You do?
Yeah. I just say I can take more. That's what I remind myself. It's like, I can go deeper. I can take more.
This is your superpower, right? Like you have a great amount of talent, but this ability to suffer and to show up like late in the race, like that seems like these seem to be your strengths.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that accurate, you think?
Yeah. Endure a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which isn't the coolest talent. Like it would be way cooler if I could just like be really smooth and have the same results without hurting so badly. But
but being able to suffer and endure a lot amongst the group of people who know how to do that better than anyone is, I would say that's a good distinguishing talent to have.
Yeah, I'm like as shitty as it is to be like yeah, I can endure a lot of pain. And actually having to endure it, I'm grateful that I get that opportunity. And I kind of look forward to it now.
Yeah. What do you think is your weakness, or what's the thing that you find yourself having to work on the most?
I'm probably not as fluid as most people physically. And then I think mentally I'm very solid, but I could come to practice with more enthusiasm some days, particularly in like really hard training when the workout isn't going to be that hard and you don't have to get amped for it. Like sometimes I come pretty flat.
Yeah.
And that's something I could do a better job at. I'm aware of that.
Does Ben remind you of that?
No, he hasn't had to. Usually I realize I'm kind of being a drag ass on the warm up when I'm pissed off that I have to do it, as opposed to like really grateful and really excited for the opportunity. Yeah.
And are most of your workouts with teammates, or do you do solo training? Like, what does it look like for you? Like, take me through like a week of training, or a typical day?
Yeah, I mean, most of our workouts are with people. So a typical day is like we meet at 8:30, go for a run, and whether that's an easy run or a workout, usually we're with a group. Before Boston, since I was the only one doing Boston, and Boston's like really specific, I wasn't really on the same schedule with anyone. I was doing a lot of stuff alone. But usually, a lot of times, at the very least, I would be working out in the same place as people, so we could warm up together and cool down, and it wouldn't be quite so lonely. And after the run, you finish the run at 10, 11 o'clock, go home, usually do my like rehab, then take a nap usually. And then in the evening, we go back out for 4 miles, and that's usually on my own. And that's when I'll take the dog out and we'll run together. And then afterwards, sometimes get in the sauna, sometimes do stretching and core. Twice a week, we go to the weight room. I think it's,
it's pretty basic.
Yeah, pretty basic.
Right?
Yeah.
And how much of it is on the track versus on trails or roads?
I would prefer to never get on the track. I don't care for it. My body doesn't handle it that well. It's kind of boring. I would prefer to go. We have this really nice road.
There's certain workouts that are kind of appropriate for that, right?
Yeah, there are workouts that make more sense on the track. I would always rather be on the road though. But almost all of our easy running is on dirt roads. We're lucky in Flagstaff to be surrounded by either national forest or reservation. So there's a lot of Forest Service roads for us to run on, which is really fun. And then we're also lucky to have like a few really good road loops, and Lake Mary Road is where we do most of our runs, which is like, I think the road goes like 60 or 70 miles, but we have a 16-mile section that's marked every quarter mile. So we do a ton of workouts on that.
One of the things that distinguishes you from people in your subculture is how transparent you've been with all of your training, in addition to writing, this book Inside a Marathon, where you literally like, this is what I did every single day, like to the minutest detail. You share all your workouts on Strava. You write about it, you make videos, like you're doing a lot of things to be a complete open book about how you're preparing. And it's one thing for an amateur athlete to do that. And I think, a lot of people use Strava to get the sort of accountability with their friends, et cetera. But you don't see that many elite athletes at their prime sharing their workouts. Like you'll see people after they retire and then they're happy to do it. But there's this sense like, well, I don't want to, let people know where I'm at specifically, because that might give them a competitive advantage. So walk me through the decision of like being so open about it, and like why that's important to you.
Part of our groups, the Hoka NAZ Elite, like mission statement is to share every part of the journey. So part of it is that I'm trying to do as good of a job at my job as possible and live up to my boss's standards. And
as a brand ambassador.
That's right. Yes. And do as well as I can in representing Hoka One. Part of it is also kind of like that sort of creative stimulation. Like it's fun to think of like interesting, clever ways to share your training. And on Strava, I don't participate socially, really. I put it out there.
Put it out, right.
Just because I found like...
Do you read the comments?
Occasionally, sometimes. But like there's never any... I've never had a constructive conversation or anything on Strava. The people will they'll either believe you did it, or they'll say that's wrong, the wrong activity type, or they'll say it's bad GPS data. And so I just leave it be. So I just like, all right, this is what it was. This is what I did. So, that's kind of changed a little bit, but I think it's interesting and fun and like kind of creatively difficult to share your training in a way that's not like a training log. Like I know that Inside a Marathon is, in its most basic form, it was always going to be a training log, but we were hoping it was more like a journal, which is more fun and interesting and harder, I think. So part of it is being a brand ambassador. Part of it is kind of trying to be creative and use your brain a little bit as opposed to just running and like posting a Ernest Hemingway quote on Twitter. Like there's only so many times you can do that before even yourself gets bored.
Well, it takes a little bit of confidence to say like, I don't care whether you see what I'm doing or not, because I'm still going to, do it. And, you still have to do the work. Right. One of the things that's interesting in scrolling through it though, is, I think a lot of people feel this pressure on Strava, like every workout has to be super epic. And, if their pace isn't good, they won't upload it or whatever. And there's a lot of like workouts where it's like, you're running 7-minute pace. It's like, it's just here's 6 miles, 8 miles. It's like, well, a lot of people can do that. Right. And I think that's really cool because it shows people the reality of preparing for a marathon, which is there is a lot of like, basically just like casual running that gets built into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it is.
Then you'll throw down some crazy workout.
That is fun. That is fun.
Like,
and also I guess to your previous point, like in terms of my competitors, it's like I don't really care if they see what they're doing because. If they see what I'm doing, because they're not going to change it. Like I would think less of somebody.
Do you
if they were
follow
like,
some of those people? Like, is anyone else doing this?
I don't know that anyone else really does it. So I would. Most of them are my friends, so I would follow them.
Right.
That's my.
But it wouldn't change what you were doing. Like it wouldn't.
No.
Yeah, of course.
I would think less of somebody if they were like had a whole plan for a marathon laid out, and then they saw a workout I did, and they're like, "Oh, I know. Actually, I want to do that."
Right.
And frankly, like.
That would not be smart.
No, and I've never had a marathon segment that went 100% smoothly. Like if you want to read Inside a Marathon and copy everything that I did, it's like, okay, I bombed a couple workouts. Why don't you just blow up in a few workouts there? It's not like an addition problem. It's more like a soup or a recipe. Like you've got to put a little bit here and put a little bit there, and maybe something isn't ripe or something isn't right, and you have to adjust. So I don't think anyone has ever saw, okay, that's what they're doing. We need to do that and then beat me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things in Inside a Marathon that I think is so interesting, I mean, really, you can characterize it as journals or as a travel log, but I look at it as a case study in the coach-athlete relationship. Like
there's
it's
a lot
deep
of that.
dive into how that works. And it's very inside baseball. Like if you're training for a marathon, like read this book, it will walk you through. You'll learn so much about how to do that. But I think every coach should read it because it's really about like how the coach responds to the athlete and what that the dynamic nature of that relationship. And there's that one part in particular where you're all keyed up for this workout. I think it was 2 times 6 miles or whatever. And Ben decides to discard it. And there's a whole, kind of discussion about that. And it's super interesting to see just how this is in a constantly evolving thing. It's not like, here's your plan, this is what we're doing. It's like, how are you feeling today? Like all these micro adjustments that are happening all the time, and the communication that's required on behalf of both the athlete and the coach to really produce the result that you're both looking for.
Yeah, and Ben does a great job of showing that in the book. And you can kind of see, I guess there's like 2 instances. One where I don't give him a lot of information about how shitty I'm feeling. And it was like early in the book, kind of in the summer. I'm just feeling really bad. Bomb a workout, feel like dog shit in a easy workout that should have been pretty easy. And then later in the segment when I'm telling him, it's like, dude, I'm tired. I'm beat right now. Then we actually make a decision to change a workout. And Ben is clued in. It's small, but you can see kind of the negative side of maybe not communicating enough with your coach is when I was feeling really tired and terrible, and I didn't really tell him because I thought this is my job. I'm just supposed to do what I'm told.
But he knows.
Yeah, but I should have been more, open about how shitty I was feeling, but maybe I was nervous to tell him that I was feeling shitty, or maybe I didn't want to tell him, or whatever it was. But a couple times in the summer when I should have been more open.
Right. For the kind of uninitiated, it's interesting. Like, there's so much heat around this one workout. It's like, dude, it's just one workout, right? But there are these, like, you're doing a ton of running, but there are these particular workouts that pop up from time to time at these determined, interval points that are super important in your build and in your prep. Mm-hmm. That you kind of like, you just got to put in, right? So although it was just one workout, it was like a super important one.
Yeah, I mean, I still ran great in New York. We put a ton of importance on it, but ultimately, like, one workout didn't make or break the segment any more than any other workout did. There could have any number of those workouts I could have bombed, and I dropped out of what I would consider kind of an important workout as well, and we just canceled another one. So you could make the case that, like, as long as you just do enough, it'll be fine. After reading the book as well, I think all the importance is more like a projection as opposed to sort of actual scientific reality.
Right. After working with Ben for a couple of years now, what have you learned about what makes a great coach? Like, what's the difference between a great coach or a great coach-athlete relationship versus, maybe some other types of things that you've seen over the years?
I don't think this at all applies to just coach-athlete, but I think it's probably trust and openness. Like, the more information I can give Ben in a cohesive way is going to let him make better decisions. Mm-hmm. And it's also, I have to trust him to make good decisions as well. Like, just 2 weeks ago, we pulled out of a race that I was really looking forward to because I got a little bit of flu-like virus earlier in the week, and I just didn't look good, but I still wanted to go race. And Ben said, that's a bad idea, I think. Mm-hmm. And I have to trust him on that, because if I don't trust him, like, what's the point of even having a coach?
Have you ever gone to loggerheads with him, though?
What do you mean?
Or, like, had a conflict where you felt really strongly about doing something and he disagreed?
No, I don't think so. I think if we ever did that, it would be like, why am I even working with Ben if we're just butting heads all the time? I really do trust him to make good decisions, and at some point, like, his record has to speak for himself. Like, we've run well at 3 marathons, myself and him. My teammate Kellen Taylor has run 2:24. She ran 2:26 again this year. We've had countless top 15s at World Marathon Majors. Like, he knows what he's talking about. Like, it would be pretty arrogant of me to presume that I can just make a better decision than him, when really, like, he's paid to make good decisions, and he's done a good job of it for so long that it would be pretty silly to be like, you know what, I know better, actually.
But at some point, as you get more and more experience, you learn to know yourself very well, right? Like, and I would imagine there's a point at which, like, you know what you need, or you feel you're going to start to feel more strongly about this, that, or the other thing, and there's sort of a taking ownership thing that takes place, right? And learning how to, like, navigate that with the coach relationship. I would imagine, like, you see super elite experienced athletes who, have disagreements with their coaches, and maybe that's healthy, or depends on the coach and the athlete, obviously. But it is interesting. Like, you're really, like, you just let him do his thing.
Yeah. And he lets me do my thing. Like, he's not, there are have been a lot of times where I've been feeling really good in a workout, like, particularly my biggest one before Boston. We did just 16 miles steady, and I was feeling really, really good, and I really, really pushed. And in general, he would be like, okay, like, let's not go to the well today. Like, let's not leave the race out here. But he trusted me to feel that I was feeling really good and to make a good decision. So he trusts me as well. And I do have a little bit of autonomy, but for the most part, like, I just want to do what I'm told. I just I like seeing what's on the paper, and I don't want to have the stress of, like, trying to figure it out. I just trust Ben enough to where it's like, look, if I do what Ben says and I do it really well, in the end result,
I'll be
where I need to be.
Yeah, cool. What do you think are the defining qualities of, like, the ultimate marathon runner? Like, what do you have to have in order to succeed at your level at marathon running?
I mean, I think physically you have to be very durable, and you have to get really, really good at running marathon pace. I think that's the thing that most people probably mess up. They probably do the wrong indicator workouts. So their workouts, they'll do a workout that is a really good indicator for running a half marathon or running a 10K on the track, and they'll be like, look how fast I ran in this. It's like, that's 6 by mile isn't the same.
Yeah.
So I think physically it's being very durable and getting really, really good at running about the pace you'll be running in the marathon. And that just doesn't mean just getting really good at knowing what the effort is, but it means getting really, really efficient, trying to not burn too many calories too fast, being good at replacing them. And then I think mentally, I think it's important to expect to feel bad, to let it in. Like, you have to make peace with the fact that this is really going to hurt. There's no way that this won't be excruciating unless you're just out there jogging.
Yeah.
And I think the sooner you make peace with that, the sooner, like, the easier it is when it comes. You're expecting it, you're looking forward to it, as opposed to like worrying about the last 4 miles and dreading them. That's just going to make them worse.
I would imagine your mindfulness practices and your mindset techniques have helped you with that. Like, to just embrace, like, this is what it is. Like, bring it on, as opposed to being afraid of it happening down the line. Like, oh, in 2 more miles, I'm really going to feel it.
Yeah. And when it does come, letting it in, like, it's there. It's coming along for the ride. There's no way the pain isn't going to hurt. But you can't let it be the one that gets to make the decisions. You have to be the one in charge. And if you let it in, if you acknowledge that it's going to be there, then you got to be in charge of the pain. And it doesn't get to hold you back. Maybe it keeps coming, maybe it hurts a ton. But if you stay in front of it in terms of like, I'm just going to let this really hurt, I think that's much more healthy than just fearing it and letting it be the boss.
Right. One of my favorite questions that I like to ask elite athletes like yourself, like, one of the things that's unique about marathon running is you go to these races and you compete, and the hoi polloi, like, everybody gets to compete at the same time. What have you seen amateur runners do wrong? Like, where you're like, ugh, what is that guy doing? Come on. There's always these stories, like, the day before the race, they're out doing tempo runs on the course, or, things like that. Like, what do you see all the time that you and your buddies are like, don't they know that they shouldn't do that one thing?
I would say trying something brand new the day before the race. It's like, especially at these big races,
totally,
like New York or Boston.
Shoes,
like, oh yeah, I just got these new socks. They're supposed to be better. Like, going to the expo to buy shoes. Like, you didn't come with a pair of shoes.
Right.
And then spending all day on their feet. And it's like, would you do this if you had a workout tomorrow? Or conversely, people who just spend the whole weekend in the hotel room. It's like, you are in a big city. Like, go enjoy yourself a little bit. Just what would you do the day before a workout? You might go for a short run and go for a walk and go grab breakfast or something like that. Do the same thing. It's fine. Like, I guess the thing that I see people do wrong is make these races into like this huge, like, special thing that is not the same as how they prepared. Right. It's like, no, you're ready. You're prepared. Do the same thing you would have done normally. Like, this doesn't have to be, you don't have to get out of your rhythm just because now you're in Boylston,
But there's all this second guessing and last minute adjustments. And I think that comes from fear or insecurity for the most part.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think people probably get in their own way a little bit too much, as opposed to just, you know what, I'm here in Boston. I want to have a little bit of fun this weekend. I want to take in the marathon atmosphere. But it's like, you've done this a ton of times, if you've trained well, you should kind of know what's coming.
Right. And if you qualified for Boston, you kind of know what to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Just get out of your own way. Just go out there and have fun. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it. Don't have to stress about it. And frankly, like, people put all this pressure on themselves, and really it's not like that important. Like, I know that even for me, like, I know this is my job and this is how I make money. But if I go out in the trials and like I get 6th, or I run 3 hours or something like that, it's like, the people who love me are still going to love me. My friends are still going to be my friends. Like, I'm 100% sure my girlfriend won't dump me if I run bad at the trials. And so it's really, I'm free to take big chances. I'm free to go out there and just run as hard as I can, and whatever those results are will be fine, because the things that are really important, the people that I care about, will still be there.
Right. You got yourself into like a little bit of hot water when you said this thing of like, if you were given the choice of running under 2 hours or giving up burritos for the rest of your life, that you would stick with the burritos, and that caused a lot of discussion.
Yeah, I mean,
about your commitment to the sport.
I made a joke.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. People on these forums, they take this stuff seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else you want me to do.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
do you want to hear?
I'm like, look, I'm living my life. Like, my happiness is important. And I like, speaking of like making a joke, I love like in the beginning of the book, you open it up by saying, I've always wanted to be the subject of a book or a documentary. And you go on to this kind of like hilariously like self-mocking, narcissistic, like rant that is, I thought was hilarious. Like,
thank you.
And but I think what I hear the same tone in the joke that you made.
Yeah. I try not to take myself too seriously by any means. Like, I know that the reason I have a platform is pretty stupid. Like, I can run pretty fast. I'm not changing the world or like writing important books or anything like that. Like, I'm a guy who can put one foot in front of the other pretty quickly for a long period of time. Like, I should have some fun, and I should make fun of myself a little bit.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What do you make of all the, like, we're in an interesting time in running right now. Like, there's some really cool kind of storytelling happening, and the running world, like outside of just elite marathoning, has really exploded with the expansion of ultra running and like the Breaking 2 project, and you see people crossing over from like what Walmsley's doing, like going from Western states into half marathon and marathon and all that kind of stuff. Like, how do you think about how you as somebody who's into movies, who's into storytelling, who's written a book, like how do you think about storytelling and running, and how you connect with the public about what it is that you do?
Yeah, and I would extend the storytelling like explosion kind of to cycling as well. And I think in running we're behind cycling. We can do a better job. You see, especially this education first team, they've got sending people to these alternative races like the Dirty Kanza, Leadville 100. And I think one of the huge powers in that in running is there's a lot of ways now to have fun with it. You see these unsanctioned races like the Speed Project, where there's just unsanctioned 340-mile race. And because these things exist, and we're at a place, especially with social media and Twitter and Instagram, there's a medium for people to share these stories really easily and really accessibly. You don't need like multi-million-dollar budgets, and you don't need to put this out on HBO or at Sundance. Like, you can just make it and then put it on the internet. I think the storytellers have done a really good job of finding these niches of people who are just having fun. And we in the elite world need to take a cue from them, the storytellers who are sharing documentaries about the Speed Project or Barkley marathons, or and figure out ways to make what we're doing interesting and fun. And I think there are some interesting or some good examples of that. I hope Inside a Marathon is one of them. We really tried hard and have worked really hard to make something that we're proud of. But I think a lot of it comes down to initiative, and I don't necessarily know if there's enough initiative, in my opinion, from the elite athletes to like go out and make it. You can't just wait and rely on outside sources to come and make the project. You have to
take
tell
responsibility for that yourself. And you've been doing that. You make these YouTube videos and all. Like, I feel like you've really taken that mantle and embraced it. And I think it's important as a professional athlete and as a sponsored athlete and brand ambassador. Like, this is part of your job now, right? To like storytell, because I think it's easy for the general public to look at somebody like yourself or a Shalane or a Des and just be like, I can't relate to these people. Like, they're just cyborgs. But that's not the case. You're all human beings, and you're down at the coffee shop eating a burrito and working on a book, and you're a human being, and you have stories to tell. And there's a lot about who you are that's incredibly relatable. And the more that the general public can kind of connect with your journey, the more invested they are in your success, and ultimately the more connected they are to the sport.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, I think you said it much better than I did previously there. So let's just take your answer.
Yeah, well,
you can dub
it
over my voice. And if you could write it out, I'll just restate it.
I think it's, you are seeing more and more of it. Like Glenn Jorgensen now is doing this vlogging, and I think that's really cool. And I just think more and more that's part of the job, And I think you're going to see more athletes doing it, but it's like an added expense too. And it's like, who wants somebody following them around with a camera all the time? Like you're trying to, be your very best. And yet when you put this book together, there's incredible photographs from like all of your workouts. So obviously you had a forethought to like have a photographer there for all of these sessions so that you could document it and share it.
Yeah. Well, we were very lucky that Ben's wife, Jen, she is a photographer.
She was a photographer. Okay.
She also did all the formatting for it and put the book kind of together. She is very, very talented at that. So we were lucky to have that. I don't necessarily know if we would have had the budget necessarily to have someone do it if we had to pay someone to come out every single time.
Published
we did,
it too, right.
And that was kind of like we never planned on like making this a financial thing. Like we were just like, this would be really cool if it existed. Yeah. We would be into this. This will be fun to make. And so it just kind of made the most sense. It's like, let's just do it exactly how we want to do it. And let's just put it out.
And then you could put it out. You could also put it out really quickly.
Yeah.
Like, so did it come out like right after New York?
Yeah. I think we got it out by December 20th.
Wow.
So
that's really fast.
New York was like November 4th. So less than 2 months. And that included writing the last 3 chapters, all the edits, all the epilogues, picking the pictures. And then we had a little trouble finding like a printer that we could get it printed for a reasonable price.
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to become this project manager and handle all this kind of stuff.
Which I did not expect when we first started. I was just like, we're just going to write and there'll be pictures and then it'll be out. We'll just put it out and it'll be awesome.
You have to pay for the printing before anyone buys it.
Yeah. And now, I mean, since Boston, we've added another chapter and we're going to release a second edition coming out soon.
Cool.
So it's still kind of turning into a little bit more of a living document. And Ben and I both hope to do a future one, hopefully if I make the Olympics.
Then you do one for the Olympics.
Yeah.
So this becomes a series.
Absolutely. And mostly I just want to do it so I can call it Inside a Marathon 2 Tokyo Swift. Yeah. And I am sure that won't be the official name, but that's what I will exclusively refer to it as.
Or Tokyo Draft.
Tokyo Draft. That's a good one too. Yeah. One of the two. So
depending upon how the race goes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was like really fun. And I think that's something that kind of people just think about how hard it's going to be when they're thinking about telling a story. And it's actually really fun too. There's some stuff that I didn't care for, like editing isn't my favorite, or like
I like all the footnotes.
Yeah, writing the footnotes were my favorite. That was great. It was fun to come up with jokes.
Yeah. So much of the conversation over the last year or two, when it comes to marathoning in America, has been about the women. Like we've seen this resurgence of the prominence of American women marathoners, which has been really cool to see. But not a lot of talk about the dudes, and even in the coverage, it's like it's about the women, which is like an awesome thing. Like, but now here we are. We have you. Like you're like you've kind of emerged as this face and voice of American marathon running. So, how do you like take stock of American marathon running right now versus what it was a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, the coverage has deservedly been on the women.
Yeah.
They've been competing at a higher level. Des and Shalane both won majors. We've got big stars in Molly Huddle and Emily Sisson, my teammate Kellen, Steph Bruce, another one of my teammates. They've both been running at a level that is frankly higher internationally than what the men have been doing. So I'm not begrudging the fact that we weren't covered as heavily as the women. I think that's great. And I also think there's room to cover the women a lot more. There's still races every year world marathon majors that don't start the women ahead. So the coverage of the women is almost unwatchable. They're just buried back behind. Chicago did it last year and we missed one of the great races ever. So I think there's still a lot of opportunity to share women's running better. That being said, I guess I think American men's marathoning has always been pretty good, I think, but the times haven't necessarily reflected that. That's kind of what I meant when I said there was this disconnect where everyone kind of thought good and fast were the same. And if you just want to take speed, the American men are, this year so far we've had 2 209s, myself and Jared Ward, and that's about 8 minutes slower than Eliud Kipchoge's world record.
There's a whole battery of East Africans who, can make mincemeat of that.
Yeah, but in terms of running well and placing high, I think American men's marathoning is actually doing pretty well and has been doing pretty well. We've finished high at Boston's, New York's. We've had people on the podium. We've been, if you want to say like in championship racing scenarios where there's not rabbits and there's not just, all right, go out, see who can run the fastest. Probably the 3rd or 4th best country in the world behind Kenya and Ethiopia. And maybe you could put like a Uganda or Eritrea in front of us. So I think we've been doing well, but not necessarily in a way that's tangible. Like nobody really knows what 6th or 7th at New York is, especially when you're 6 minutes behind the leader.
Right.
But that's just kind of my take. I'm sure that somebody on Let's Run will hear this podcast and get mad at me again for it.
You can be
but
sure
I don't give
of
a
that.
shit. So,
so the fastest is Ryan Hall still the fastest?
no,
205?
yeah, sorry. Ryan's run the fastest ever marathon by an American. He ran, I think it was 204? 204.58 at Boston.
Yeah.
And then the American record is 205.30 something by a guy named Khalid Kanuchi from like 2005. And then we've had Galen, Dathan. We've had people running in the MEB, running in the 207s, 208s.
Right. And so your low 209 is like 11th on that pecking order right now.
11th all time.
So heading into trials, you got to get 1st, 2nd, or 3rd to make the team.
Yep.
Who are you? I know you're just thinking about your own race, but who are the other people to watch in your opinion right now?
I think over the last few years, a guy named Galen Rupp has been, on paper, probably the best American marathoner. He's run 206 or something, and he won Chicago, 2nd at Boston. So on paper, he's very good and should be the favorite probably. But there's also a good friend of mine, Jared Ward, who finished right ahead of me in New York and then 7th, right behind me in Boston.
How much training were you guys doing together?
He was in Flagstaff for about a week, so we went on a few easy runs and then one really big workout before New York. Yeah. And then I didn't really get to train with him since then.
But he's your dude.
He's a guy. Yeah, I really like Jared. And we've competed against each other since college because he went to BYU, I went to University of Portland, and they're in the same conference. Right. So been racing each other a lot. Usually he's beaten me. Yeah. But I'm excited to kind of...
You got him in Boston.
I got him in Boston. Yeah, I got the better PR, so I own him now. If you're listening, Jared, I own you. Keep that in mind. But we've got a good group of other really talented runners. Shadrach Biwat has been top 3 at Boston. Chris Derrick, unfortunately, just broke his ankle, but he's very talented as well. Dathan Ritzenhein has run 207. So I think those guys and a lot of others should be ready to go and in good form at the trials. So
right. So trials are end of February.
Yep, February 29th.
Atlanta. And how does that course break down for you?
It's going to be really hilly.
Yeah.
It looks like it'll be about 1,300 feet of gain and loss over the course of the race. So it's going to be 3 8-mile loops. And I think that favors me. I'm here to race really hard, and I think the lack of rhythm kind of is right up my alley, where it's just going to be really, really hard. And I think that suits me pretty well.
How are you going to not get injured?
How am I going to not get injured?
Yeah.
Well, I've been lucky to be pretty durable, and I get a massage every week. We have two good chiros. I think that's one of the things that a lot of amateur runners could do better is you put all this money and time into training and stuff, and then as soon as something like pops up, you're like, I'll just figure it out. Like my ankle hurts, I'll just figure it out. It's like, no. Find like a chiro, find a massage therapist, find a physical therapist that you can go see. Like you're going to buy $300 pair of shoes, but you won't spend $60 or $80 to go see a professional who's going to give you exercises and rehab and help you to be healthy. So I do that. I'm a big believer in that. And
So
just gonna do what they
chiro,
say.
you get like your back cracked and you do decompression, or what does that look like specifically?
Yeah, a lot of it's ART, active release therapy. So
Painful.
yeah, the dry needling. Our chiros are dry needle certified, and there's sometimes it's scraping, sometimes it's
Cupping.
Yeah,
You do cupping.
no, they haven't ever cupped me, but I mean, if they ever want to, I trust them.
You got to get on the cupping.
Got to get on the cupping. Okay. It's. I would say they probably look more like a PT than a typical chiro. It's not a ton of like back cracking spine stuff. It's a lot more wherever you're kind of injured and trying to figure out the root cause of that.
And what does the other aspect of recovery look like for you? Like, do you do the foam rolling and do you have the Normatec boots, and what does that entail?
Yeah, I do have the Normatec boots. I try to foam roll a lot and just generally do the rehab that the chiros give us. And we do strength work twice a week in the gym, and those are like Olympic lifts, like deadlift, squats, that kind of thing. And that's not only performance enhancing, but it's also rehab as well.
Right.
But I mean, honestly, like I can sit here and talk about all the little tiny things that I do for recovery, but really like sleep is the biggest one.
Yeah.
I try to take a nap pretty regularly, try to have good sleep hygiene with like not doing stuff in my bed other than sleeping, and and try to go to bed a reasonable hour, wake up, get right out of bed, that kind of thing. Just regular sleep stuff. Nothing. It's not too
Boring.
special. Yeah.
Like, what's your special morning
Yeah.
routine?
No, you just get up. You wake up and you get up and drink coffee. That's the morning routine. Yeah.
Is the U.S. Olympic Committee, have they like invited you up to Colorado Springs? Is there any of that kind of stuff going on? Like, I know in swimming, like they'll do training camps and they'll bring like the top people in for little week-long sessions and things like that. Does that happen in marathon running, or
Not so much.
Yeah.
The Olympic Committee's more hands-off, I think, in running
Yeah.
than in most sports. And the running's it's more corporate. I think it's more well-funded in the sense that more groups have the resources. We don't necessarily need to go
that,
through
right.
the USOC.
And so what's the one thing, if there is anything, that you're really focused on working on now that you weren't like in your lead up to Boston? Like, is there anything like, this is the one thing I really want to master that I feel like was holding me back before? Or is it just I'm doing the same thing?
I mean, the training has changed, I guess, now since I'm not getting ready for a marathon.
Yeah.
But in terms of like big picture stuff, I just want to do the same stuff. I don't need to feel like I need to do extra. I don't need to go back to the drawing board. So I just want to do the same stuff that got me really, really ready for Boston. And I don't want to like have this sort of neuroticism where it's like, I need to do more, I need to do more, I need to do more.
Do you have a goal time in mind?
No, the course is going to be too hard. I just want to be top three.
And what is the course like in Tokyo?
It will be pretty flat, but it will be really, really hot and humid. I think this year on the day we were supposed to have the marathon, like if it had been this year, it was well into the 90s with 90% humidity.
That's really high.
Yeah. It'll be brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do any, like, do you go train in certain places to acclimate to that? I mean, because, Flagstaff's super dry.
Yeah.
And you have the altitude, but it's a completely different climate.
I think for the Olympics, we probably will. Whether that's like Houston or Hawaii or maybe even going to like Okinawa or something like that. We're trying to make the team first, so we haven't discussed that. But in general, we're capable, like we have kind of a sauna protocol if we're going to a really hot climate where we'll just sauna for 15 to 30 minutes, like 10 times in the 3 weeks leading up to the race, and that'll kind of help, and overdressing and stuff like that. So
You don't put the treadmill in the sauna?
I haven't done that. No, I've heard of people doing that.
People
that sounds
do that
awful.
for bad water.
Yeah.
To train for bad water.
I don't ever run on the treadmill either. I don't care for the treadmill. So I just rather go outside. So
We just found the title for the podcast.
yeah, I don't care for the treadmill.
Yeah,
that's it.
that's it.
Yeah.
In getting ready for what was the question I wanted to ask? I just had a brain fart. I had it all chambered and everything.
It was about the treadmill, probably.
No, I know what it was. So we could let's just spend like a half an hour on the treadmill. you seem like somebody whose motivation is really internally generated. It's not like, hey, I need to beat this guy or I need to be on this podium or to win. Like, this is about you versus you. Mm-hmm. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't always like that. A lot of it was sort of like almost petty. Like, man, I want to fucking beat this guy. Uh-huh. But I think
fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that guy. I gotta beat these guys. And there was a little of that in the book too. Uh-huh. But in 2016 maybe. No, it would have been 2017. I ran the Houston half marathon. And it's usually really good weather, really fast course, really flat. This one year it was just like soupy, and we weren't going to run fast. And it got really hard at like 10 miles, and I threw myself a little pity party. Like, I wasn't running as fast as I wanted to. I wasn't beating the guys I wanted to. And I was like, this is bullshit. This is stupid. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to just drop out. And I kind of jogged it into the finish, and it wasn't a good time. And I finished a lot lower than I should have finished. And I kind of like looked at that race, and I was like, I probably can't. This probably isn't a sustainable form of motivation, being like, I have to beat these people. I need to figure out a more like sustainable way to push myself. And then like 2 weeks later, we had the U.S. cross country championships in Bend, Oregon, and it was snowy. It was bad weather. It was a really muddy course. And this was to qualify to go to the world championships. And top 6 go. I was in the lead group. There was like 7 of us going into the last 2K, and down this big hill, I fell and slipped, and I lost 20 meters or something, hammered as hard as I could to try to get back onto the group, and I fell again on a corner. And all of a sudden, like, they're like 70, 80 meters ahead. I'm just watching the last world cross-country spot go away from me, and I kind of was like, look, maybe that's gone today, but I can still hurt as much as I possibly can. I can go as hard as I possibly can. And that was probably the most I've ever hurt in a race, was the last K. I just absolutely dug deep and ripped as hard as I could. And I probably wasn't running that fast, but I was going as hard as I could go. And I was really, really proud of that race because I wasn't worried about what other people were doing. I did the thing that I wanted to do, which was do the best that I could do on that day. And I've kind of made peace with the fact that sometimes I'm going to run as well as I can possibly run, and I'm going to get beat. I'm not the most talented, best runner in the world, and I can't control who else comes to the line or the fitness that they're in or any of those extrinsic factors, but I can control how well or how hard I go today. And maybe I have a mediocre day and I'm trying to turn that into a good day. Maybe I have a good day like I had in Boston and I'm trying to turn that into a great day. So I don't know. That's kind of how I got to this point.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. That is the sustainable fuel that you need. The anger and the sort of lower emotions might get you to a certain place, but ultimately it's not going to serve you over the course of a career.
Yeah.
You got to find a different seat for that drive. But were you always like super competitive when you were a kid?
Yeah.
Like, what was it like growing up? Like, where does that come from?
I don't really know. I mean, I was just competitive right off the bat. Yeah. Maybe it was just like my parents.
Like, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to win.
Yeah. My parents started us, and my sister and I, in sports really young. And it was just like, I realized like it's really fun to be good at something. Uh-huh. And when you kind of butt up against that and you're young, a lot of it is based on how like much do you want it. Like talent and training when you're like 12 years old doesn't have as much to do with it as like, you know what, I'm just going to run harder. I'm just going to go deeper today. Or
and your high school had a pretty good program,
we
right?
did, yeah. We were state champs my sophomore year, and then second place my junior year, and we did well my freshman year as well. So we had a good team.
And your sister still run?
No, she doesn't. She was never a runner. She did like soccer and basketball and tennis. Yeah.
Parents still together?
Yep.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it's great.
When you look back on, you're still at the beginning of your career, really, but would you, like, thinking back to that kid in high school, running cross country, could you have predicted or imagined that you'd be in this situation?
I probably imagined I'd be better.
Yeah.
Realistically. I'm sure like when I
love the honesty of that.
When I was logging miles in Wheat Ridge, I probably assumed I'd have 3 gold medals and a world record by now. But
so it must have been a frustrating decade there.
At times, probably. Yeah. I think I got to college, and my first year I didn't handle the freedom and easy access to beer all that well. And I think probably I realigned my expectations, and I've been working back to like the confidence, I guess, since then. And
so you're behind schedule.
Yeah, really, realistically, yeah.
Okay.
Gonna have to make all 3 of these next Olympic teams, win gold medals just to impress high school Scott.
Well, it's good that you're 27.
Yeah.
And you got a coach that believes in you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you tell that youngster, like that 16-year-old kid?
I would say I'd probably tell him make sure it's always fun and find ways to keep it fun. Because at certain points in college, like especially that first year when I was running like garbage because I was out until 2 a.m. 3 times a week and, you know, drinking too much and eating like shit. It wasn't fun because it's not that fun to wake up and like be hungover and go for a long run. And I think I kind of lost sight of the fact that like, this is a sport, this is a game. It's supposed to be fun. And it took me a little while to maybe find that again.
So it's fun for the most part, but there's got to be days where you're like, I don't want to get out of bed today.
Yeah. But
so how do you talk your way through that? Because I think like I'm trying to root it in the experience of a listener who's like, you know, maybe training for their first marathon and is struggling with, you know, motivation or the kind of strategies that somebody like yourself might employ to get over those humps.
Yeah, I mean, I think for most people, they would say that going for a run is the best part of their day. You know, even if it's not every day, but I try to keep that in mind too. It's like I get to do
it
the best part of most people's day for my job. And even if there are things that I don't really like, it's like it's part of being an adult. It's like doing aspects of your job that you don't necessarily like. And when I really think about it, it's like I got a pretty sweet gig here. Like the worst part of my day is doing hamstring rehab or something like that, you know? So I guess like for the average runner who's probably getting up at 6, you know, which is not something I do, getting up early and going straight out the door, and they've got all these other responsibilities. So making sure it stays as like a get to instead of a have to.
Right. Sometimes easier said than done, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, especially when you have some crazy workout looming over you.
I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't want to sit here and say like I'm some Zen Buddha who always appreciates the gratitude. It's like, no, I have days where I don't want to do shit and I just want to like sit at home, or I want to go like do something not running. But trying to remember that this is a sweet thing I get to do.
A little extra Andy Puddicombe on those days.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And
how do you keep the Olympic dream in perspective? Because that looms so heavy, right? Like it's just such a massively ambitious thing, and you know, the dream of a lifetime. And I would imagine it would be easy for it to kind of, you know, infect you in not a good way unless you're able to like kind of, you know, keep it in check.
Yeah, I try not to deal with it too much like that as like an end, you know. I have gotten to this point where I got to the point where I got to in Boston because I wasn't thinking about like I have to win Boston, nor do I think I have to make the Olympic team. I'm just going to prepare as well as I can. I'm going to try to focus on doing the best I can do today on this thing. And then I have faith that if I do well at the things that I need to do now, the end will be there. And I am willing to bet on myself that I'll be tough enough and strong enough and fit enough to accomplish things. I don't need to like have some huge carrot of the Olympic rings down the road.
Do you do any visualization techniques? Like when you're getting ready for a big race, you've been on the course at Boston, you know every turn or whatever. Do you like walk yourself through it mentally? Like what do you do before you line up on the starting line in you know, in that kind of sense?
I let myself visualize when I'm on runs, usually, like thinking about the last few miles and imagine feeling really good, but imagine running really well. I think it's important to acknowledge that this is really going to hurt. Like it's not helpful to visualize it not hurting because it's going to hurt. So I let myself visualize things in the race, or like while I'm on runs, I imagine the race.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once I get to the line, it's really a matter of like me not letting myself write the story before it happens, you know. It's just I just want to be where I'm at, and that's kind of what I do when I'm on the line. I try to, you know, in mindfulness it's called like grounding usually, where you just focus on your feet touching the ground. That's kind of what I do usually before races. I don't need to get hyped up. I don't need to get like out of my head or whatever. I just want to be where I am.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, one of the things that you hear with marathon runners or ultra distance athletes, there are moments where, it's not going well, and it's easy to just not just throw a pity party, but just think, well, I'm done, but to stay grounded and present with what you're doing, and with experience understanding that just because you feel lousy now, like 5 minutes from now, you might feel great. These things change.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's, Amy Craig had a really good quote about this. She's a wonderful marathoner, but she said, I know I'm going to have good miles and I know I'm going to have bad miles, and I don't know what order they're going to come in. And sometimes I remind myself of that. And I think another thing that happens a lot, at least to me, is like when I'm feeling bad, when I feel like I'm having a bad mile, if I actually check in, if I'm actually like, okay, how do I actually feel? It's really not that bad. It's probably like my mind's projection that I'm supposed to be feeling bad. So being present and like actually checking in with how your legs feel can make you feel better.
That's interesting. Yeah. Distinguishing between how you actually feel and the story that you're telling yourself about how you feel, which is probably the worst, right? Worse than you actually feel.
Yeah. Like in Boston, for example, like we got through the halfway mark in, I think I was 104.40. And the fastest I'd ever come through the half marathon mark in a marathon was like 106.12 or something like that. And so I think my mind was like, like, oh shit, we're in uncharted territory here. Like we're 90 seconds under pace. And they were like, they're telling my legs, like, you better slow down. But when I actually felt what my legs felt and like checked in with my body, it's like, no, like I'm fine. I'm okay. Like this, I just am expecting to hurt. And you have to I'm not expecting to feel shitty. I'm expecting that this is too fast. But in actuality, I'm not feeling that bad.
Yeah. And pretty close to even splitting it.
Yeah. A negative split at Boston.
Oh, did you? Oh, you negative split?
Yeah. I was 104.40, 104.29.
Wow.
Which is hard because the second half has the Newton Hills.
Super hard. But the best marathon performances are pretty even, right? In terms of first and back half?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of speed.
Yeah.
If you were going to run like the fastest you could run, you would want it to be even. But the best performances in terms of like winning races are almost all negative split.
Are they?
Because you generally, especially at races like Boston and New York and Chicago, like there are big moves at the end where people will be running, having really, really fast miles to break the race open.
What do you think about Gwen Jorgensen's proclamation about making the Olympic team? I had her on the podcast recently.
Yeah,
I don't know if you listened to that, but I mean, it's a bold statement. And one of the things I asked her was like, what was that like after saying, like sort of, okay, you win the gold medal in triathlon, you retire, and then you make this announcement, and then you show up at Bowerman. Like how'd that go? Right? Like how were you received? And it seemed like people were happy to receive her by her account, but I'm interested in how the marathon world is kind of what the reception is.
Yeah. So I guess when I first heard she said, okay, I'm going to go win the gold medal, I was kind of like, yeah, all right, bullshit, Gwen. Like, come on. Like, let's be real here. I kind of thought it was like too brash and it was too much, I think was my initial reaction. And then I was like, well, like, why do I think that? Like, has every right to have whatever goal she wants to have. And I think it's great that she's sharing it. Like, I think I should have taken a second before in my head, I was like, nah, fuck that. That's a stupid thing to say. Because in reality, it's like, I kind of I admire her for A, having the highest goals possible, and B, being open and honest. Right,
like being unafraid to just say that, knowing that it will, there's going to be some people that aren't going to receive it so well.
Yeah. Like I should have taken a beat and been like, well, good on her, but I admit that I didn't at first.
Yeah. Well, it'll be exciting to watch.
Yeah. I hope I know she has had some injury issues. I hope she's healthy and ready to go on the line.
I think she's making her way back. So is it trials? Are the women and the men running like the same weekend, or how does that work?
Yeah, we'll run on the same day.
Same day.
We actually just got an email about this. I think it's the current plan right now. The men will start at 12:03 on February 29th. The women will start 20 minutes later so that we're not lapping them. And it'll be 3 8-mile loops and then a 2.2-mile stretch out of the loop to finish.
Wow. So on the course at the same time.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
The US ATF has assured us that the men shouldn't be lapping women until the third lap, and it should be spread out enough where it won't be like trying to navigate huge groups. And I think the top women will be probably catching the top men, or the stragglers on the men's side at some point as well. Because at the moment, I think like 700 people have qualified for the Olympic trials. So it'll be a huge event.
And is it strictly like first, second, or third, or are there other like weird things that happen, as you see in other sports?
Yeah. So for the U.S., it was so convoluted, super convoluted until maybe like 5 weeks ago, where there was like an A standard, and then there was a point system, and it was going to be,
like,
it was
what's
like
going on?
It's like not even people in the sport could explain how it was going to work. And luckily, the USATF lobbied the IAAF, which is the governing body of the sport, to make the Olympic trials like a gold label event. And what that means, shortcut, is that the top 3 across the line will make the team. They will achieve the standard and be eligible for the Olympics, and the USATF will just have to submit their names. And the top 3 will go from the trials.
And that's it. Like if somebody else 2 weeks later at some other marathon runs some crazy time, or somebody gets injured, there's a purity to that. I mean, that's the way it's been done in swimming forever. Like it's just very like there's no other. It's just your first or second, or that's it.
Yeah, and I think there's some wiggle room with injuries. You can kind of after or before a certain date, but yeah, it's been like that for the marathon for a really long time. The standards were slow enough where if you won the Olympic trials or you were top 3 at the Olympic trials, you had the standard. And that was awesome. It made for great events and great, just a really cool, dramatic thing. There was finality, and it was kind of in danger for a little while, but luckily that's not the case.
Yeah. So you make the team. It's also, I feel like the timing is really good too. Like it gives you plenty of time to build, to take a break and then build back up.
Yeah.
In swimming, it's like perilously close to the actual game. So it's always this weird science experiment of like, do you train hard or you maintain? Like, but here being at end of February, like you have a nice block after that.
Yeah, and on the track, it's more similar to swimming, where the Olympic trials will be in the summer, and then the people who make the team will go to the Olympics later that summer. So I think for shorter distances, that's probably good because you don't have to like end your season necessarily, even if the race is a 10K. Like you're probably pretty beat up and maybe you feel bad for a few days, but you can come back and still be fit. With a marathon, that's not really an option. Like they couldn't have the marathon in like May or even, later, like July.
Yeah, there's no
like
way.
4 weeks later, you can't run another marathon. It would go awful. It would be terrible. So it kind of, it's a little bit event specific in that regard. Right.
All right. We got to wind this down in a minute here.
Okay.
But one of the things I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about is just, now that like you're in the media a little bit more, like, is there anything that you think people get wrong about you, or is there a narrative out there that you feel like they don't understand what I'm trying to do here? Like, just want to give you the opportunity to like correct the record if there's anything out there where you think people are misunderstanding you or marathon running in general, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about the difference between like what good is and what fast is, and how those aren't necessarily 100% the same thing. That's kind of been the thing I've probably gotten the most shit for online. People chastising my opinion that good can be finishing high and not just running fast.
Like, but in general, you mean like hearkening back to some imaginary golden age of American marathon running that actually didn't exist?
Exactly. That's 100% correct. Okay. Yeah. If somebody wants to go through the history books and show me an era where people were running sub 210 every single time out, I would be happy to hear about it. I don't think it exists. Other than that, I think I've done a pretty good job of like telling my own story and communicating the messages that I personally wanted to communicate. And so I've just done it myself as opposed to like letting other people get it wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
It's kind of it. The only thing I would say, and I know this is going to be a shock to a lot of people, is I don't actually only eat burritos. I know we didn't talk a ton about burritos, but I've got this like reputation online for eating a lot of burritos.
You created that narrative.
Absolutely. 100% I did. But I think some people think that's the only thing I eat. And I would like to go on the record as saying I only mostly eat burritos. There are other aspects of my diet.
You only mostly, or you mostly only?
The main food.
How many
is the
burritos a week?
I mean, on a good week, like 6.
Yeah.
On a bad week, 1, 2.
I'm with you.
They're so good.
I probably eat that many burritos.
Yeah, home burritos, they're all perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a couple burrito recommendations
Okay.
while you're in LA.
Absolutely.
Are you going to be, where are you guys going after this? Are you going to be on the west side?
I think we're going back towards Ontario, and then
LAX.
Oh,
LAX,
by
sorry.
LAX?
Yeah.
So hit Holy Guacamole on Main Street in Santa Monica. That's
Okay.
my favorite. Every time I go to LAX or I fly into LAX and I'm making my way back home, I always drop in there.
Holy Guacamole.
It's just a little hole in the wall place,
Perfect.
but they make it's pretty good.
Are there, does the menu have pictures?
No.
Oh, okay.
don't
I
think-
like
are you
the
at,
menu
like,
with the
old
pictures,
car-
yeah.
And I like, I mean, I like, there's a lot of like just the old school food trucks, not the
Yep.
fancy
Oh,
food
okay.
trucks, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the ones that park at construction sites and stuff
Yep,
like that.
that's
Those
clutch.
are some of the
Really good.
better burritos
Yeah,
around.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
right.
guess I had to get the burrito plug in
Yeah.
there. Sorry, Rich.
And all right, final question. What's the movie you're most anticipating right now?
Let's see. Like, that's coming out?
Yeah.
Man, I'm upset that I don't remember the name. What's the name of the movie that's coming out that Lena Waithe wrote? Sunny and something. It's got Michael Kiwanuka. I don't think that's his
even know
name.
about
Not
this.
named Michael
I'm out of
Kiwanuka.
it.
Michael, he was in Widows and he was in Get Out.
Oh, right. I know. Who you
Yeah,
mean.
and then I don't know the woman. I'm interested to see that one.
Mm.
And I just watched. This summer has been a good movie summer. We had Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We had Hobbs and Shaw, and we had John Wick 3. So I had a really good summer of movies. Yeah.
I have a good John Wick 3 story. I'll tell you
Okay.
after the
Perfect.
podcast.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, I'm so excited for Olympic trials. I can't wait to watch you, and I'm cheering for you. You're one of the good guys, man, and I'm excited to see what you're going to do. It's super exciting, so best of luck to you.
Thank you so much, Rich, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, and once you make the Olympic team and go to Tokyo and all that, come back and tell us about it, will you?
Sounds good. I'll just try to live up to the image I had of myself in high school. Now we can come talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please do that. In the meantime, everybody check out Inside a Marathon. It's not on Amazon, right? Like you got to
Nope.
get it to your website.
Yeah, through the website,
ScottFauble.com.
We should
Why
have.
do you get it up on Amazon?
Well, because they would make us charge like $40 for it.
Okay.
But we're doing it through our own website. Inside a Marathon, second edition should be coming out soon. I don't know when this podcast will drop. Hopefully we'll have the book out by then, and we'll have an e-version as well, Kindle version.
Cool.
So
Awesome.
yeah.
Audiobook?
Audiobook. No, not an audiobook. I'm not doing that. That's too
do
long. Unless we can get Morgan Freeman to read it. I don't want to do it.
Well, now that
Yeah.
you're a podcaster,
That's true.
you know,
We could do it.
You should do that.
Yeah.
you could bring in like guest people to like mimic your voice.
Yeah.
some of
One
your
person.
running buddies.
Yeah. If we get, there's like 22 chapters. If 22 people volunteer, you can all read one chapter. That's fine with me.
All right, you should do that.
Okay.
In the meantime, ScottFauble.com, at sfobs on Instagram.
Yep. And at Scott Fauble on Twitter.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.
Good luck.
Thanks, man.